It all started with a game of hide and seek. A perfectly normal, boring Monday afternoon. My name is Leo, and I am the best hider on my block. No one can ever find me. My friends, Sarah and Mark, were counting on the porch, their voices muffled as they reached 50, 60, 70. I needed the perfect spot. My eyes darted around my room, past the messy bed and the scattered comic books. Then I saw it. The closet. It was usually off-limits, stuffed with my dad's old coats and boxes. But today, it seemed to be calling my name. The old wooden door was slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness promising the ultimate hiding place. I crept over to the closet, my sneakers silent on the worn-out rug. The air grew colder as I got closer, which was strange for a stuffy old closet in the middle of August. A weird smell, like damp earth and burnt sugar, tickled my nose. I dismissed it, thinking it was just old clothes. Pushing the door open, I slipped inside, pulling it shut behind me. It was pitch black. I couldn't see a thing. I shuffled backward, deeper into the darkness, expecting to bump into a wall of coats, but I just kept going. It felt like the closet was stretching, growing longer and longer with every step I took into the suffocating blackness. Suddenly, my foot didn't find the floor. My stomach lurched into my throat as I tumbled forward, falling through nothing. It wasn't like falling off a bike or tripping on the stairs. This was a silent, endless drop through cold, empty space. Colors I had never seen before flashed past my eyes, streaks of sickly green and deep purple. A strange humming sound buzzed in my ears, getting louder and louder until it felt like it was inside my head. I squeezed my eyes shut, wishing it would stop, wishing I had just hidden under my bed like I always did. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. I landed with a soft thud, not on hardwood, but on something squishy and damp, like a giant wet sponge. I opened my eyes slowly, hesitantly. I wasn't in my closet anymore, not even close. The sky above me was a swirling mess of bruised purple and gray clouds that seemed to pulse with a faint, eerie light. The ground beneath me was a carpet of slimy, moss-like stuff that clung to my jeans. Strange, twisted trees with no leaves reached toward the sky like gnarled, bony fingers. This wasn't my room. This wasn't my world. I had fallen somewhere else, somewhere terrible. I scrambled to my feet, my sneakers making a sickening, squelching sound on the spongy ground. A shiver that had nothing to do with the cold ran down my spine. The air was thick and heavy, and that strange smell of damp earth was everywhere. I looked around wildly, hoping to see my closet door, a way back to my familiar messy room. But there was nothing, just the endless expanse of twisted, skeletal trees and the sickly purple sky. The silence was the worst part. It was a heavy, listening silence, as if the whole world was holding its breath, waiting for me to make a sound. I wanted to scream for help, but my throat felt tight and dry. I took a tentative step forward, then another. I had to find a way out. I had to get back home before my mom called me for dinner. As I walked, I began to hear them. Whispers. They seemed to come from all around me, slithering through the spindly branches of the trees. They weren't in English or any language I knew. They were soft, hissing sounds that made the hair on my arms stand up. Lip. The whispers seemed to follow me, getting closer with every step I took. I started to walk faster, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. That's when I saw the eyes. They weren't attached to any bodies, just floating in the air between the tree trunks. Dozens of them. Big, round, yellow eyes that blinked slowly, all at the same time. They watched me, unmoving, their gaze cold and curious. I froze, my breath catching in my chest. I couldn't run. I couldn't move. The eyes just floated there, suspended in the gloomy air, tracking my every twitch. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if they were talking about me, deciding what to do with the boy who had fallen into their world. I felt like a bug trapped in a jar, being examined from all sides. I had to do something. I couldn't just stand here and wait for whatever owned those eyes to appear. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I broke into a run. I didn't know where I was going, I just ran, away from the floating yellow eyes, away from the slithering whispers that now sounded like they were laughing at me. The spongy ground made it hard to run, trying to suck my sneakers off with every step. I glanced over my shoulder, and my blood ran cold. The eyes were following me, drifting silently through the trees, keeping pace with me effortlessly. I was being hunted. Panic set in, cold and sharp. I pumped my arms and legs harder, ignoring the burning in my lungs. The twisted trees became a blur of gray and black. The whispers swirled around me, nipping at my ears like tiny, sharp teeth. I had to find a landmark, something different from the endless forest of skeletal trees. Up ahead, I saw a break in the trees, a clearing where the sickly purple light was brighter. Hope flickered in my chest. Maybe there was a way out there. Maybe it was a portal back to my world. I pushed myself faster, a sob escaping my lips as I burst out of the woods and into the clearing. It wasn't a way out. The clearing was filled with tall, jagged rocks that looked like broken teeth jutting out of the ground. And in the center of the clearing stood a single massive shadow. It wasn't a shadow cast by anything. It was a solid pillar of pure darkness, darker than the deepest night. It had a shape, vaguely like a person, but it was tall and thin, with long, spindly limbs that seemed to twitch and writhe. It had no face, no eyes, no features at all, just an unnerving, complete blackness that seemed to absorb the light around it. The whispers stopped. The floating eyes vanished. There was only me and this thing. The shadow creature turned its featureless head toward me. I couldn't see it looking at me, but I could feel its gaze, a cold, heavy pressure that made me want to curl up into a ball. A low humming sound started to emanate from it, the same buzzing I had heard when I was falling. It grew louder and more intense, vibrating through the spongy ground and up into my bones. One of its long, shadowy arms began to stretch, extending toward me, getting longer and longer, defying all logic. It wasn't moving quickly, but it didn't have to. I was paralyzed with fear, my sneakers feeling as if they were glued to the ground. My survival instinct finally kicked in, screaming at me to move. I tore my gaze away from the horrifying shadow and scrambled backward, tripping over my own feet and falling onto the damp moss. The shadow arm kept coming, slithering across the ground like a black snake. It was only inches from my foot. I kicked out wildly, crab walking backward as fast as I could, my hands sinking into the slimy ground. The shadow was relentless, its dark appendage reaching, about to touch me. I squeezed my eyes shut tight. "It's not real," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "It's not real. I want to go home." I screamed. A raw, terrified scream that tore from my throat. I expected to feel the cold, empty touch of the shadow creature. I expected to be pulled into that void of absolute darkness forever. I kept my eyes squeezed shut, bracing for the end, my whole body trembling, but nothing happened. The humming stopped. The cold feeling vanished. The slimy ground beneath my hands was gone. I could still feel something tangled around my legs, but it wasn't a shadow arm. It felt soft and warm. Confused, I slowly, cautiously opened one eye. Sunlight. Bright, warm sunlight was streaming into my face. I blinked, opening my other eye. I wasn't in the creepy world of twisted trees and floating eyes. I was in my own bed, in my own room. The morning sun was pouring through my window, making dust motes dance in the air. The thing tangled around my legs wasn't a shadow tentacle. It was my comforter, which I had kicked into a tangled mess at the foot of my bed. I sat up, my heart still racing, but the terror was slowly being replaced by a wave of overwhelming relief. My comic books were still scattered on the floor. My posters were still on the wall. I looked over at my closet. The door was shut tight. I remembered hiding in there, the fall, the purple sky. But had it been real? It felt so real. The fear had been real. I could almost still smell the damp earth and burnt sugar. I threw the covers off and walked over to the closet door, my hand hesitating before I touched the cool brass knob. Taking a deep breath, I pulled it open. Inside were my dad's old coats, a stack of board games, and an old pair of boots. It was just a normal, slightly messy closet. There was no endless darkness, no portal to another dimension. It had all been a dream, a terrifying, horrible nightmare. A wave of dizziness washed over me as the relief settled in. I leaned against the doorframe, my legs feeling a little shaky. My mom called from downstairs. "Leo, breakfast is ready." Her voice, so normal and cheerful, was the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. I had never been so happy to hear it. As I headed downstairs, I made a promise to myself. From now on, when I play hide and seek, I'm just going to hide under the bed. It's much, much safer there.